We're live.
We are live. Welcome to the
Hi,
Shiny Happy Squirrel Lounge. I'm Greg,
I'm Tamara.
And I'm Chicky.
and welcome to our first webisode ever. So thanks for coming out, guys. How was everybody's day?
My day
Oh,
is, oh,
Sunday sleep day.
my day is vastly improved over earlier. It's gotten better as it's gone along.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I've been up since about 6:30. I woke up on my own, which is kind of a first, and then my son Logan was over, so we had some fun. So, yeah. So for first webisodes, I thought that we would just talk about basically the whole purpose of our webisode and just maybe a bit of an explanation, just a little bit of background for each of us. So, who wants to start first?
You.
Me? Okay, so just to go back a little bit, the reason we call ourselves the shiny happy squirrels is this this webisode, I should say, is for all of us who are either ADD or ADHD. So it all started. We actually all met through a Facebook group called the superhero. The shiny chicken superhero layer, which is run by Stacy Turris, and most of us met, and then later Chicky set up a Facebook group as an offshoot to it, just for a small group of us to get together, and a lot of us which is called the Shiny Happy Squirrel Lounge, and it's a small knit group. We've all become very close, and what really kind of brought it on is a lot of our members we go through a lot of struggles just day to day between relationships or marriages, general, like with doctors, medication, a lot of the symptoms that a lot of neurotypical people just don't understand, that for us shiny brains that we go through, and uh, and it just sort of came up when we thought, well, why don't we do like a webcast, and just like a group of us talking about a lot of the daily struggles we go through, and really bringing awareness to the ADHD that we suffer. Um, Although I wouldn't say it's necessarily suffering, but I mean, a lot of times I think it's just that we as ADHD, we don't think the way that typical people do. A lot of people can think very linearly. For most of us, we're pretty abstract, and a lot of times there's areas that we really shine in, but sometimes there's areas where because we're not neurotypical, we really struggle with it. So we wanted to bring awareness, and I know, especially for Chicky and I, and especially you too, Tamara, we really wanted to do something
Oh,
as a way to help one another, and to help a lot of people out there that suffer with ADHD, and and basically we wanted to have a webisode that was funny, a place that we could hang out, literally, almost to the point that if we really wanted to, we could probably do this without any pants. So
fly by the seat of your pants.
yeah, pretty much, yeah, exactly. So did you guys have anything else you wanted to add to this at all?
Um, I think for me, I just want to make sure I help people because being diagnosed with ADHD was definitely a change in pace. It was a good thing and a bad thing, and what the hell do I do next thing, and scary because you feel like you're alone, and when you find a group like Stacy's, it kind of put things into perspective and makes you realize there are other people out there like you.
Yeah.
So it really helped me, and that's what I want to do when I help people like me.
Yeah.
Well, as far as me, I mean, I actually found the group through my doctor that I see. She was a member of one of them. I don't know, because I'm not a member of any of them anymore. But it was the original one that the chicken peeps or whatever was spawned off of, and so I joined that. And to me, this is better than therapy, because you're talking to like-minded people that, and I never thought of ADD as suffering with it, although I do see it as I make other people suffer
Yes.
But you know what? Fuck 'em. You know,
Fuck it.
it's just the way it is. And I know that you two, like all three of us, are pretty similar in ADD. But I still have this strong belief that even amongst the crazies, I still stand out. And I was actually, I swear, I was actually reminded of that today by the new girl Tara Lane Garrett, who's big into astrology and zodiacs and stuff, and ran my chart again. And she said, "You're all fire, like everything in me is." And I ran a lot of people's charts. Ran yours, Tamara. Ran Laura's. Ran Melissa's. Everyone. None
You
of
ran mine.
Yeah, I had her run them, and none of you have as much fire as
I think I'm earthy, more earthy.
Yeah, I'm all fire, which explains a lot about me.
Yeah.
So
Most
anyway,
definitely.
but and to me, my ultimate goal here is to help the people in this group that need the most in a real, financial way at some point. And we got to start somewhere, so this is where we're starting.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. And I think we all are in agreement here that we want to find something that we can have some fun at, and at the same time we're going to be able to provide a way to really get our word out that that ADHD is not some made up symptom that the pharmaceutical companies want to use to to push more drugs on us. So what we suffer is real. I know
Very
from
real.
it is, yeah, and I know for myself, like just when I look at myself before I began medication and treatment to now, I do see the difference. It is very night and day. Um, so I think probably I think what I'll do, I'm going to start just a little bit with my background. Um, so I know for myself, I was I know as a kid I always felt different than everybody else. I never really kind of fit in. Like I was probably a bit of a loner, I guess, and I don't think it's necessarily an ADHD thing, but I know for myself through school, like I hated doing assignments. From about grade 3 on, if I was given an assignment that was extended for a long period of time, I always struggled doing it, and I know for myself, my mom just could not understand it. When she was in school, she always loved assignments. She was like, "Great, it's work I can take home. I don't have to sit at a stuffy desk and do it." But for me, I always thrived in the classroom and doing tests because it was in the moment, I guess. Just I would rarely study for a test, but I would always do really well. I and I know I had, and growing up too, I had a lot of social problems too. I was actually held back a year in grade 2 or in grade 1 because I had actually, my mom had put me in school at a younger age than what I was ready for. And I remember my mom would like in kindergarten she would always end up getting called into the principal's office because I would either go from being really passive where some kid would just take a truck, I wouldn't think anything of it, to the teacher would then say, well, sometimes you can say no, and then my mom was getting called in because I'd either hit or bit somebody. So yeah, so quite
I got
yeah.
that.
So but one of the
That be in second grade Catholic school.
yeah, I was in Catholic school until grade 3 when I moved to Mississauga, Ontario, and that was when I actually started in the public school system.
So
So
what age were you when you got diagnosed?
I was diagnosed last year.
Oh,
So,
okay. So you
but
you
yeah, so I guess I was kind of leading up to it. But I know for myself in grade 4, I was actually even though in grade 3 I had read The Lord of the Rings, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. Mainly because my dad made me read it. He thought I should read it and understand it, and I did it. But I mean, ask me to remember. I can maybe remember certain parts of it, but I haven't picked it up since. But
so you
like The Hobbit or anything like that, anything I was really interested in reading, I could fully understand it. I could recite it back. But when I was in school, I was actually put in grade 4. I was put in a reading for comprehension program, which was
Mhm.
it was almost like remedial reading. It was, and It wasn't until years later, of course, that I realized that it was because of the ADHD. Because I mean, then they just, if you daydreamed, you just were basically you were just a daydreamer. Like
Yeah.
ADHD, like people who are ADHD, usually they associate with somebody who's just hyperactive.
Right.
And I was never really hyperactive as a kid, but I was never hyperactive as a kid. But I did. But yeah, like I had a lot of problems with assignments. I hated like if I hated doing homework. I always preferred to just sit in class. I could pay attention in class for the most part. Like I never daydream, but the minute you set me in front of homework where I'm just left alone to try to figure it out on my own, I couldn't do it. Um, and I pretty much went through that like all through high school. Like I hated assignments. My best year was probably grade 12. And there was some certain changes that happened where I actually did a bit better. Um, but even I didn't even finish college. I went to college here in Kingston shortly after I was married, and I had moved back, and I ended up having to drop out of my fourth semester of computer programmer analyst because the advanced procedural programming I wasn't getting it. I had a teacher who I couldn't learn from him, and as a result, I had to drop out, and I just couldn't afford to go back. So um, I spent some time working in call centers. I worked in a call center for about 4 years, and then later I ended up actually getting a job working for a local internet service provider where um, they're very loose based, and I've actually learned a lot because it's pretty much you're pretty much just thrown into whatever situation you have to learn, which I find is the way I learn best. And actually, like the learning the Google Hangouts when I realized I made a mistake, um, you go through that fight or flight. I don't know if you guys notice
Yeah.
that where all of a
Right.
sudden it's like oh wow, I'm in a panicky situation, and you end up solving it and just kind of blowing right through it.
It's
Um,
those are
yeah,
the things that I thrive
yeah,
for.
yeah, exactly.
It's
Like
it's in the moment it's a fucked up situation and you're like, oh, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? But
yeah,
it's that
and it's
drive
like our
that
brain
you
it's like
have
an
to
ADHD
figure it
brain just
out.
kicks in and goes,
Yeah.
I've already thought of five
Get it
solutions,
done.
bam,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
get it done. And
Absolutely.
even at the beginning of the year at work, my network operations manager actually approached me because he knew I could do web coding and especially PHP and MySQL, and he gave me a project to do. He says, "Oh yeah, by the way, you got about 2 days to do it." And I started panicking at first because normally, like anybody who's a programmer out there knows that generally you want to take a couple of days to plot everything on paper before you're ready to go. And I found the solution and I was able to just start coding right away, and I did it. Now it still took me a while, and then I kind of realized later. I think he knew that I work better under pressure, so it was his way of lighting a firecracker under my butt to get me
Right.
going. But I ended up doing it. It took me, I think in total, it took me about 3 weeks to finish, but I finished it, and a lot of that had to do with all of a sudden starting medication, starting Concerta, and starting the therapy for ADHD. But just so I don't go off track too much, what actually prompted me to look into being diagnosed as ADHD is I had known for a while that my son was ADHD. When he was about 5 or 6, we went to a specialist, like to a place called Pathways. They specialize in like childhood education disorders, things like that. And the child psychiatrist who had looked
Yeah.
at him or who had examined him after 10 minutes, she didn't really, and I think it was maybe more the delivery which led to us being hesitant to treat it. But she wrote a prescription for Ritalin and said, try this. And I had the mentality that, well, no, Ritalin's not, I'm not putting my kid on Ritalin. Like, I'm sorry, like there's, it just seemed like she only spent like 10 minutes with him
Right.
and said, oh, it must be this, just try this. And I'm like, yeah, my son's not going to be a guinea pig. But then I
Right.
started noticing he hit grade 4, and that's why I was bringing the story about grade 4 and the reading for comprehension, because we had my now ex-wife and we went to a parent-teacher conference with this grade 4 French and English teacher, and they said, we don't understand it. It just seems like whatever he's reading, he doesn't seem to understand it. So he's really struggling with his reading. And Julie and I looked at each other. Well, that doesn't make any sense because he's reading Captain Underpants books, and he can explain everything in details what's going on. And that's when I realized for me, I'm like, you know what? Logan's going through the same struggles that I went through when I was in grade 4. And that's when the light bulb went up in my head, and I arranged an appointment with my GP to say I suspect I may be ADHD after all, and I need to be tested. So I filled out, it was like the questionnaire that you fill out that says, rate all these symptoms, and I scored pretty high. So right away she's like, okay, she's like, I've got a referral for you to see a psychiatrist about this. So my psychiatrist, Dr. Marin, she knew within 10 minutes, just sort of the same with the child psychiatrist that met with Logan. She knew within 10 minutes. She's like, I already know what the diagnosis is. But at the time, she's also a teaching doctor, so she was teaching a resident psychiatrist. So the psychiatrist went through the whole psychoanalysis where they say, do you see little Martians? Do you see, do you hear voices in your head? Do you want to go and kill people? All that.
All of the above.
When she was done, she's like, yeah, you are definitely ADHD. And so right away, she's like, we're going to try you in Concerta. And originally, I was on 18 milligrams of Concerta, and then she also had me on Epival as a mood stabilizer. The reason for it, there was a couple of reasons. One, when I was a baby, I was about 3 days old, I contracted bacterial meningitis. And I was actually hospitalized for months on barbiturates because I was having seizures. So she was worried that the Concerta being a stimulant would trigger seizures, and she didn't want it to develop into full-blown epilepsy. The other reason is my mother's side of the family actually they suffer from mood disorders. My mother is bipolar 1, and her mother was also bipolar as well. And during a time when mental illness, they basically looked at a lot of crazy treatments to just stabilize the patients, never really trying to understand it. It was just, well, if it was called manic depression. So for them, they just went, well, you know what, too bad.
They used electric shock for that.
Oh yeah, electroshock therapy. And it's funny actually because my ex, Julie, she's bipolar 2. She's also she's also borderline personality disorder, and she's also ADD herself. So now both my daughter Emily just recently was diagnosed as ADD, but she also suffers social anxiety. Basically, my whole family is just a mix of really bad symptoms. And but I know for myself, like now that I'm no longer taking the Epival, I'm on 36 milligrams of Concerta, and I also take alprazolam, which is basically generic Xanax for anxiety issues. And that's been just sort of over the past few months the alprazolam, because I didn't realize just how bad my anxiety issues were, and it's actually anxiety itself. Like, we can talk about it in another time, where all the different medications and all the other symptoms like anxiety, and there's a lot of people like that we've talked to in the ADHD groups that are bipolar, amongst other things. So it's something else we can talk about later, but...
most definitely, but can I say something real quick? In my personal opinion, anxiety is a symptom and not necessarily the disease.
You're wrong.
I think, we can debate at another time.
There's no debate.
Let me finish.
Let me finish.
It's the same thing as having ADHD.
I think having ADHD or similar diagnosis is what is the major cause of all this anxiety, because a lot of the things that we deal with causes the stress, and we don't know how to handle it, and including the 1,000,001 things that's in our brains on a minute-to-minute basis. We can't handle it, point blank, period. So in my opinion, that causes the anxiety and the stress. So if you can treat the ADHD, a lot of times you don't have to have anxiety medications.
That's not
in my personal
anxiety.
In my personal situation, the doctor tried to do it backwards. She tried to treat me for depression and anxiety first with I'm not going to write it down, but I think you're bipolar diagnosis. And we tried Prozac and anxiety medications, and I felt happy for a little while, but it still wasn't solving the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
So, a couple years went by. I stopped taking the anxiety medications, and, I guess we'll get to my diagnosis story later, but yeah, that's my personal opinion on anxiety.
Yeah.
No, I understand what you're saying about anxiety, and the only part I'm saying that you're wrong about is that anxiety is a chemical imbalance, just like ADHD or bipolar
Correct.
or borderline personality. But I understand what you're saying, where having ADHD can exacerbate anxiety in someone. That is true. And the fact that taking stimulants increases anxiety in people doesn't help. So I understand what you're saying. But I personally think that anxiety is more rampant, or as rampant as ADHD itself, because I know plenty of people that basically may not be ADHD, but they have anxiety.
Well, there could be anxiety is not the main cause of, anxiety is not their issue. They have something else going on that if they fix the something else, then we wouldn't have the anxiety.
Yeah.
That's my opinion on it.
No, I kind of agree with Hammer on that one.
You're all down for shoving anxiety medications down anybody's throat that you meet that you think they can't handle stress well, but sometimes that's not always the case.
No. There's a big difference, and I've dealt with anxiety with an ex that for 14 years, so I know a little bit about dealing what to listen for from somebody that has anxiety, what they say, what's anxiety and what is just stress. So I can tell the difference. And these people I talk to have anxiety. It's not just stress. I wish, it's not like I'm making it up. I don't make up what they tell me.
No,
but
you're not making it up. But
I go on to my doctor, I talk to her. Tell me, is this anxiety or is this being a 12-year-old? Or this is just.
Yeah.
There is a difference. For example, if you drive over a bridge and you have to roll down all fucking windows in your car because you're afraid you're going to go off the edge into the water, that's anxiety. That's not normal.
No.
That's scared of heights. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. But no, I know for me, though, when I was originally got the alprazolam for the anxiety, I remember I kind of looked at Dr. Marin really funny. I said, well, I don't always seem to be anxious. And she actually said that anxiety can excuse me, I can't talk today. It can manifest itself in a lot of different ways. And for me, it would usually be agitation, or I would get really depressed where I would feel like everything was hopeless and I would want to jump off a bridge.
Yes.
So, and I've been finding that when I get like that, and I do take the alprazolam, within about 10 or 15 minutes, I start to feel better. Like I can actually deal with the depressive wave that's overcome me. So, but that usually happens either I get agitated, or like I get agitated where I'm like, okay, I need to go into battle mode, or I get really depressed where I just kind of give up all hope and all I want to do is just basically like hide in my apartment and just not talk.
Did you read Stacy's? She actually did a blog post. It's drowning in river water.
Yes, I did. That was a while ago.
Yes. When I read that, it was word for word everything I've ever felt, thought.
Yeah.
Imagine when it comes to that, how the depression aspect of it can hit you like a fucking ton of bricks.
Yeah.
And you feel down and out, and no matter what anybody does to pull you out, you're like, fuck it. You have an I don't give a fuck attitude, well, for me. And, but at the same time, you don't want to be around people. You want to be secluded. So on the outside looking in, it looks like you're depressed, but you're really just going through a bad time. I call those system resets because my system's been overloaded so much that instead of just pushing the reset button like I'm supposed to stop everything from crashing, my system just did a hard crash and failed. And so there I am in the bed just laying there.
Yeah. No.
It gets to that point sometimes, which is the reason why we have this broadcast and we're doing this, so we can
Yeah,
pull the happy
exactly, to get the
sides out
word
of
out that,
things
for
and
anybody,
show the
especially,
good parts of ADHD and ADD and things like that.
yeah. No, and no, definitely, and I know for myself, the as soon as I was diagnosed as ADHD, it was like, so this explains exactly what's been going on in my entire life. Like, all of a sudden you look back and you're like, okay, this is why I was doing the things that I did. This is why sometimes people look at me weird, or this is why sometimes, like, I'll blurt out something that people kind of look at me and go, where the hell did that came from? And originally I thought it was just the way, and I just kind of looked at him like, oh, it's just the way that I think, like you said this, which then I thought of this, which then I thought of this, which is why I said this.
Yes.
And I've had to
You're
actually
5
hit this
steps
on my
ahead,
coworkers.
and they're only thinking of the words that are coming out of their mouth
Yeah,
right
you end
now.
up being like 3 steps ahead of everybody, where
Yes.
people are just like, how did you get from point A to point C? And I'm like, I took a shortcut. I don't know. So,
or if people are telling a story and you're like, oh yeah, da 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 da, and you go into a this happened to me, they think
Yeah.
you're conceited, but it's not even about that. You're just trying to relate to them, and you're thinking about, you're pulling what they're saying and you're relating it to your personal experience. And no, you're not trying to one up them. You're trying to relate.
No, you're trying to say, hey, I
And that part of it, yes, that part of it is what can sometimes prevent us from interacting with people sometimes.
Well, plus
because we don't have that, let me hold my tongue. I mean, we think about it after the fact. Oh, they probably think I'm an asshole because, I'm not relating to their story and I'm showing my own damn story. But in all actuality, we're thinking, oh my God, that happened to me too.
It's the difference
trying
between
to make
sympathy
you
and
feel.
empathy.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think about
Sympathy is just
it
like I feel sorry for you, but empathy is saying I know how you feel.
Exactly.
And a lot of our trying to get the story out while somebody else is talking is because if you don't, you're gonna fucking forget.
Exactly.
So I gotta interrupt you, or I'm gonna forget, and you're gonna ask me a question, and I'll be like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Which is another thing that causes problems in relationships. You're always interrupting, so it feels like you're competing, but you're not. You're just trying to get the mother freaking statement out of your head before you forget, because if you forget, then you're going to dwell on it forever, in a day, in a million days, because...
Or just, it could be something important that just slips your mind until 2 weeks later. Yeah.
Which is why I'm probably a firm believer in ADHD people should be with ADHD people. Bipolar people should be with bipolar people.
I disagree, because somebody's got to hold us together.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying you should be medicated.
And if you've got 2 ADHD people...
Yeah, but I'm not saying you should be medicated.
Crisis alert.
It's not like we're fucking loose cannons and can't, and...
we are loose cannons.
Yeah, but it's not like, we're out there committing crimes and can't live our lives. What we need is people that are going to be able to relate to us. And the fact is, unless you have it, you can't relate.
Yeah.
Just like, I got a girl in my bedroom, she's got Crohn's disease and another autoimmune thing. I can't relate. I understand, as much as I can, but unless you have...
You understand, but you don't know because you've never experienced it.
Like Laura with fibromyalgia. I can empathize. I know what the symptoms are, but I can't relate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly.
And life's hard
You
enough.
almost feel helpless at the same time when you can't relate to something that somebody says. And when you seem disinterested or when you don't have a lot of feedback in the conversation, they think, you're blowing them off, but, you can't relate. So you're like, I don't know what the fuck to say. So you don't say nothing. And then they see you as withdrawing. And I need support. And you're like, well,
something else just got into something else got in my field of view that seemed more interesting, and I'm sorry I tried, but it just kind of disappeared. Yeah.
Yeah, we're like really getting off the subject of our.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, that's pretty much my
20 minutes.
Yeah, so that's pretty much my my story as far as like my ADHD and how I'm coping with it. So Tamara, how about you tell us?
Tamara, you go first. I gotta go get my charger.
Alrighty. Like I said earlier, I was misdiagnosed as being bipolar with depression, anxiety. Years went by. I wasn't taking my medicine. I wasn't really giving a fuck about anything I did. I was getting too stressed out. I actually went to my doctor to get anxiety medication, and mentioned that I thought I might have ADHD. And this was just last summer. I'm 28, so and during the conversation that I was having with him about how I organize everything under the sun, have 500 to-do lists, just can't get them all done because I have 500 million other things going on in my mind that seem priority over the things on the list. During that conversation, he got up several times to take my heart rate because every time I started talking about it, my heart rate went up. Yeah. And he kind of looked at me and he was like, just talking to you is making my heart rate go up. Take this test and we'll see what we got. But I'm pretty sure you have ADHD. So I took the test and passed with flying colors. Yay! I don't know how good of a thing that is, but yeah.
Nothing is supposed to pass.
He put me on Adderall, and I probably took it about a week or two, and it has a shelf life. I could tell that it was falling off about lunchtime. So, yep, the dosage from there, and I've been taking it ever since. Other than that, as a child, I was really, really interested in school, and like y'all know, if we're interested in something, we're going to hyper-focus on it and go hard, and nothing can stop you. So that's how I was with school, which is why I think that it was overlooked. I don't necessarily think it crept up in my adulthood. I think it was always there. It was just, hiding or overlooked because it wasn't expressing itself the right ways, or people just thought I was a creative thinker, and, seems like on all my report cards I would have straight A's, but there would be a comment that said, Tamara can do so much better if she just applied herself, and I'm going, what the fuck? I'm making straight A's in honors classes, or my reading comprehension, Greg, like you mentioned, it sucked. I would have to read one paragraph 5 times before I understood what it was, but I was a fast reader. I understood what I was reading, but I didn't understand content. I can read a paragraph about Jimmy and his blue hat, and he went to the store and he got all these things from the grocery store, but I can't tell you he had a blue hat and the items from the grocery store at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
And standardized testing, that's what you would always have. So I would be, out the park in the highest percentage for math, and out the park in, everything but reading comprehension. And it was just something I always struggled with. But like I said, it was always overlooked. Kind of passed along as Tamara's not applying herself. But anyway, so that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Yep. Okay. All right, Chicky, you're up.
All right, I'm Chicky. Everybody knows me. I was diagnosed at 16, and my story, along with the reading comprehension thing Tamara's just talking about, was basically exactly the same thing. Only when I was tested, I don't even remember. I think the earliest I remember is like 10 years old for IQ, stuff like that. And my mother will still tell you the story of the lady that tested me for IQ said his vocabulary is off the chart, but his reading comprehension is really, really low, so it kind of evens out. That was the fucking theory.
Yeah.
Which we laugh about now, which is part of why it never they never found out I had it till I was 16. By that time, I'm a sophomore in high school, and I've got, I was left back in 7th grade because, they thought it would help me. Well, here I am at 44, and I still remember that. I was kind of kid that, like, for history class, I would have a big project to do, and I would have these great ideas and then never do it.
Yeah.
Teachers would say, you always ask to go to the bathroom, stuff like that, typical stuff. Anyway, I had my parents took me to this doctor on a recommendation from their neighbor. Name was Dr. Victor Castillo. So we go there, finds out, gives me all the tests, for AD, finds out I'm basically at the end of the chart. Well, they test the whole family in those days. My father was off the chart. My mother wasn't ADD. My one sister maybe a little. But, so, I took Ritalin, and, after moving away and stuff and living in different places in my 20s, I would take Adderall and stuff. I know when I lived in Myrtle Beach, I was seeing a doctor that I was taking Adderall. So I took Adderall for 10, 15 years. But I always knew taking it, something just wasn't quite right. And I had the same thing. Greg had the feeling of when you found out that you had ADHD, of this, you mean it's not my fault kind of feeling.
Yeah.
There's an explanation for this. But anyway, about 7 years ago, my now ex-wife came home and said, this doctor came to my school and talked, because I was still taking Adderall at the time. I think you should really try and contact her. I said, okay. So long story short, I tried. We end up contacting her. Find out her name's Carla Victoria Enriquez. My doctor that originally diagnosed me as a man is now a woman. So between those 20 years or so.
Wait a minute. The doctor you thought was a man was actually a woman?
Rewind?
No, the doctor.
Can we get a playback?
The doctor, when she first diagnosed me at age 16, was a man.
Right.
Uh-huh.
When I went back to her 7 years ago, she was now a woman.
Okay, so she went through a sex change.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, okay.
And she basically spent, the years that I wasn't around her, getting her sex change, suing the state of New Jersey for firing her from a hospital from New Jersey, successfully, I might add.
Oh, well, go her.
Yeah.
She's also a Sagittarius, which is why we get along so well.
Okay.
Sagittarius here.
and she's the smartest person I've ever met in my life. She's also one hideous-looking woman. my mom actually saw her. My mom saw her like 5 years ago and was like, she was a much better-looking man. And I vaguely remember her as a man. But anyway, so and she does. Well, she did my evaluation. Your ADHD evaluation should be 3 to 4 hours long. This is not some psychiatrist you go in for 90 minutes, and that's it for your evaluation. And she takes you through the pyramid test, which was developed by Dr. Levine. You go through physical tests, doing finger movements and stuff, mimicking what she does, makes you walk straight lines, and make turns that you have to recall from memory. Basically, what she's trying to do is overload your short-term memory. So, can I
just say I would fail those roadside drug tests if I was sober or drunk, because the things that they ask you to do, touch this, touch that, say this backwards, who the fuck can do that sober?
She doesn't ask. That's not what she asked you to do. I just told you.
I'm just saying.
Well, I agree with you. You probably couldn't.
Just put that out there.
But part of the test, the physical test that she gives you, is to see if the medication she's giving you is working,
or fucking you up.
Well, I don't know, fucking you up, but she's not an idiot.
If you can't spin around in a circle, then something's wrong with you, other than ADHD.
She knows what she's doing prescribing medication, so she's going to prescribe you something that's not going to fuck you up. What she wants to see is how this medication is working. This is why follow-up appointments is extremely important in ADHD.
Okay.
It's not just getting some medication and being thrown out there, because 90% of people that have ADHD that are treated for it or
Does she bend you over and make you cough 3 times, Steve?
No, but she does give you. She does make you lie on the table, and she pushes her hands in feeling your liver and stuff like that. She gives you a physical exam. She's a medical. She's an MD. She's a pediatrician, which is why she's the only person on the planet I'd allow to treat my daughter for anxiety.
Okay.
So anyway.
No, yeah, we're not making fun of you. We're
No, I know.
No.
So she I told you that story was better than the vasectomy story anyway.
The vasectomy story. Wait a minute.
Well, I told the vasectomy.
You don't remember that when we were doing just the little private hangout? The chickie was.
Yeah. Tell it again. Tell it again.
To get my vasectomy done.
Okay. Yeah. We got about 15 minutes. So yeah, Chickie, you've got to tell us. You got to tell us the story again about when.
I was just about to.
Okay.
I was lying on the table to get my vasectomy done 6 months after my daughter was born, and I'm laying there and I'm all.
That didn't take long.
Fuck no, I'm not.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yo, I'm shitting myself. Knocking up somebody, by accident ain't one of them. But so I'm laying on the table, stretched out, and the doctor goes, "Oh, don't tense up." I'm like, "You got my fucking hands in your nuts. How am I not supposed to tense up?" So I go over to him and I go, "Would you have this done?" He goes, "I did my vasectomy myself." I looked at him. I'm like, "I'm in the wrong fucking room."
I think.
How do you do your own vasectomy?
Arnold.
How does that happen?
I didn't ask.
I mean,
are
you under anesthesia?
That would take a lot of skill and, pardon the pun, a lot of balls to be able to do your own vasectomy.
I know.
Like,
well,
did you use like a scope or like one?
I don't think it matters if you have
big
big balls or not, because you're not going to need them.
The conversation ended when I said I'm in the wrong fucking room.
I mean.
So anyway,
I would be nervous even just to, like, if I was a doctor. I don't think I'd want to be doing my own vasectomy. I mean, what if I slipped or something or coughed or?
I don't know.
Do you sue yourself?
Y'all are really hung up on that vasectomy thing.
I mean, do you sue yourself? Whoops. I got medical malpractice. It's all right. We'll fix this up in a jiffy.
You sue yourself?
I know somebody.
So I've been seeing the same doctor for the last 7 years. I know I was properly medicated up to about 3 months ago when I lost my insurance and stuff, and now I'm not properly medicated at all whatsoever. I basically am back to pre-getting diagnosed. I don't take anything.
And I keep forgetting to go get mine, so I'm not medicated
that's the way to
either.
go.
See, that's the thing. The one thing I don't have a problem with, as far as like, I'm lucky with my pharmacy because on the bottles there's RX numbers that I can phone into my pharmacy and they have an automated system. So when I look and I see, okay, I've got I got three Concertas left. I can phone it. I can just phone it in. Use the
because you live in Canada.
That's the responsible thing to do.
No, that's because you live in Canada. We can't do that here.
Yeah, and even if we could, I'd still forget to phone it in.
Well, that's true. You would.
I've had to. I find one of the things that helps me. We can cover. We'll cover this in another session or another webcast. Just with like finding little tricks and tactics that help us keep us organized and things like that. I find for me, because I'm a big tech head, I actually have a couple of apps on my phone that I use for organizing and for calendar events.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, any.do is my to-do list.
Don't do them.
That's half the battle right there.
I trick my apps. I'm like, yes, I did it. Lie.
Yeah.
I have Evernote and I've never used it.
There's really good
I use
apps.
any.do and then I use the part they have the same people that do any.do. I use Cal, which is their calendar app. And I find that and I also have the premium subscription for just like $3 a month. It's not a lot, and I find for me that it really helps with like especially with appointments because I just put them right in my phone and then I don't have to worry about them and I can set reminders for like the day before or an hour before the appointment is. And Cal syncs perfectly with my Google account, so I have like even if I add it into Google Calendar, I can load up my calendar app and it will sync up with my Google Calendar, and I can also set location. So I can like there's a little location thing where it basically pulls up Google Maps. So I can put the location of where my appointment is, and it will even set location-based reminders. So if let's say you need to go somewhere like the store and you want to make sure you don't forget the milk, you can set the location for the store, and then as soon as you're at the store, the phone will beep and say, "Oh, by the way, get milk." So it's perfect for us because I mean, we as ADD'ers, we tend to forget things, and like how many of us have gone to the store and said, "Shoot, what was I going to get?" And then we forget, and I'm really very very much a fan of using technology to solve a lot of solutions.
Greg, we will talk about that another day because I would love to know your tips on how to actually listen to your apps. I have all of those apps. I do all of those reminders, and I'll still forget the motherfucking milk.
I'll give you one tip, Timer, that'll help you remember the milk, and it's very simple. Take your fucking medication, because when you take your medication, you don't have that as much with ADHD.
When I take my medication, I'm a little quiet fucker who's hyper-focused on everything but what I want to be. I get shit done, but I'm just like a zombie. Who wants to be like that?
Well, I'm just telling you that, that's your solution.
I know. Fuck it. Rebel.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too, is that a lot of people, and that sort of comes with a lot of the stigma that sort of one of the stigmas with ADHD is that people think, well, if you just take the pills, then everything will be fine, and it's a lot more than that. There's a lot of cognitive therapy. There's a lot of coaching that there's a lot of things. There's a lot of skills that you have to develop on your own, and you have to find something that works because the medication is just a tool. Yeah, or someone. Yeah, exactly. The medication just is to treat the clinical problems or the physical aspects of an ADHD brain. It stimulates the areas that are just normally for like control, impulse control, for organization, that are just not normally active in the brain of somebody who is ADD or ADHD.
Well, the medication is also there to help you with that short-term memory issue, which, for example, going to the store and you're supposed to get milk and you forget milk. That is something medication definitely helps with.
I don't necessarily think it helps with remembering.
But medication is not the only solution.
I think it helps you focus on what your task at hand is, so you're not forgetful in that aspect. I don't think it helps you.
Medication anyway.
What?
You're probably not.
This isn't about me.
I'm just saying. You're probably one of those 90%. 90% of people with ADHD are mismedicated or mistreated.
Oh, well, I'm sure I am, because I'm sure there's a medicine out there that will help me focus and not make me feel like a zombie. But
well, not only that, but
stimulants work different for me. Just like caffeine works different for me. Caffeine makes me sleepy as all hell. Adderall does not make me get up and go. It calms me down.
What's supposed to?
It pipes me the fuck down, and sometimes I don't want to pipe the fuck down. I want to turn up.
It's supposed to act in reverse, the stimulant.
I understand.
Yeah. Well, no, but the thing is, though, is that there's so many different types of ADD, ADHD, so not one particular medicine is going to work. What might work for one person is not going to work for the next person over. So for me, I lucked out. I lucked out with Concerta and with for the stimulant and alprazolam as my anti-anxiety antidepressive. So I mean, and I'm very thankful that I have my psychiatrist is a teaching psychiatrist in a city where we have 2 hospitals and basically three colleges or universities. So we have the Royal Military College, which is where all of our military officers train. It's like the equivalent of West Point. We have Queen's University, which is a major university, especially their medical their Department of Medicine is one of the best in Canada. As well as we do, Kingston also has a national cancer research facility. So there's a lot of there's a lot of opportunities for like many of the residents to gain a lot of experience. And I am very lucky in the fact that my psychiatrist is a teaching doctor. So she's always researching, and I signed papers when I first was diagnosed to allow them to send my medical records for research to help them, because I thought, well, if my life can help somebody else who has ADHD to lead to better diagnosis, better treatment, better counseling,
which is why
I'm glad to be a part of it.
Over the head with what I'm telling you about the proper evaluation and the proper follow-up. There's a protocol for how you should be evaluated for ADHD, and each visit after that, there's a proper evaluation. My doctor happens to do it, and it's the only fucking doctor I've heard that of anyone that has ADHD that actually goes through this, and it's all geared towards seeing if the medication I'm giving you is the right medication, is the right dose.
Yeah.
That's what's, because it doesn't matter what medication you take. I mean, you could take Concerta, you could take Adderall, you could take Focalin, Vyvanse, Ritalin. Different people are going to take different things. This is why the physical follow-up evaluations are just as important as the medication you're taking. Because without the proper doctor, don't fucking matter. You're shooting
blanks.
Fucking, huh?
You're shooting blanks.
Well, yes, now, I mean.
Yeah, the vasectomy doctor took care of that for you, but.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm
Actually,
gonna
I don't know.
nickname
I
that
don't know if that was
doctor.
Black said earlier, but
That
whatever.
was my failed attempt to being funny. Hardy har har.
Hey, that was pretty good. Um, yeah, we're just gonna name that Doctor Arnold the urologist. You know, like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Remember, I said I'd
You
fix you
can
last.
do it.
I lied. Rip.
So when are we starting this question and answer segment?
Um,
Now.
Well,
We've
yeah,
been
just
on
to
an
be fair, there's
hour.
not really anybody viewing it, so we can't really. There's nobody that can really do it. On top of that, I'm just gonna try it again. Yeah, it's for some reason the Q&A thing that for the Hangouts
We're
is.
no go for Q&A today.
Yeah, we're no go for Q&A, unfortunately. But hopefully, as we get a
Oh.
few more viewers and stuff like that, I
What
think
did we name
it'll
it?
definitely be
Q&A?
interested to hear what people think. So when this webcast is over, it will automatically go to the it'll automatically be uploaded to YouTube. So
Uh-huh.
so what I'll do is I'll make sure that the link is.
I won't be watching it.
You don't need to. You're a part of it.
No,
Yes, you're a participant.
You're a
yeah, I
participant.
know. I don't need to watch it.
You're a star too. We're all stars.
Oh, yeah. I'm a star.
Yeah. I was just laughing there earlier when Tamara was saying about the it's not about me, and all I could think of was Carly Simon's "You're So Vain."
Yeah.
Thanks.
You think this song is about you?
Don't you? Don't you?
Tell you a little bit about Tamara. Tamara's, I think her bipolar shows through a lot.
I don't have bipolar.
I thought you said you did.
Misdiagnosed.
Huh?
Misdiagnosed. No.
Oh, okay. Then,
Yeah.
you know,
The
I don't know.
It was Double Jeopardy. They did a redo.
yeah.
Yeah.
So can we take that back? We think you have ADHD instead.
Yeah.
Instead,
Anyway,
because they're so similar.
Yeah.
So
And that's the thing for me too. I've been to plenty of psychiatrists. Like I originally went for testing for bipolar disorder, and every time I went, they went like we did an EEG, we did a CAT scan, we've done this, we've looked at your symptoms, and you don't show any signs of bipolar disorder. You're just going through situational depression.
Right.
And but it wasn't until I started seeing the symptoms in Logan where he wasn't able to sit, he would refuse to do homework, and I went, wow, he is just like me when I was his age, and that's when that's what prompted me to go, yeah, maybe I better get tested too. So we got about 5 more minutes. So what would you say, like if you were to look at so what maybe just sort of quickly something to talk about is if you were to look at if you were to compare before you were diagnosed and after you're diagnosed, like again, I sort of briefly touched on it. I just said, like, I know for me the difference was night and day, and having that revelation of that, being ADHD, all of a sudden now everything just started to make sense. Like everything was going on. I found for me, I started to realize that there was. I'm starting to realize that like I started to develop some self-compassion because I started realizing that, okay, I'm not a loser. I'm not, I'm not weird. I'm not an oddball. This is just part of who I am. And now that I know what it is that I need to deal with, now I can start looking at trying to work with it, turn the weakness into a strength.
Right.
How do you guys feel about that?
For me, it's hard to go back and say, what it was like before having ADHD, because I was diagnosed so long ago, 28 years ago. So, but I do know that I can comprehend now what I read. Well, not now because I'm not taking my medication, but normally, when I'm properly medicated, there's just I remember maybe even the first time I ever took the Ritalin, within like 45 minutes, it was like taking a person who needed glasses and putting the correct glasses on them. Yeah. It was just, things were clearer.
Yeah. That actually is a really
not
good
only
analogy.
just the medicine, but just being able to, like Greg said, associate something with. I mean, at first I wanted to blame everything that was fucked up about me on ADHD, Yeah. But then it's like a lot of those things it's not me blaming everything. A lot of those things is ADHD, and it stems from ADHD, and maybe I'm not batshit crazy. Well,
yeah.
I am, but
Maybe a little.
there's a name for it.
Yeah.
See, but I was never a look back
That
kind of
helps.
person.
Yeah.
I can call it
I
something
don't
other
look
than
back
crazy.
and say, am I this or am I that? I just know that, and it's hard for me to do now because I'm not taking the medication. But I can still tell you when I take it, things are clearer, and that's the only way I can explain it.
No, exactly. I know for me, like I looked at before I was medicated. It would feel like I would have like I'd be looking at a puzzle with 12 pieces, and I would try to put them together, but the puzzles would fly all over the place.
You fucking
And
did
after
puzzles?
being
I couldn't do
medicated,
puzzles.
now I'm able to, like, I went from trying to focus on 12 things at once and just not being able to keep track of it to where I could focus on 4 things at once, but I was able to switch back and forth and keep
Yeah, you
track
can
of it.
still multitask. You just keep track of it better. See,
Yeah.
for me, I had
yeah.
5 million puzzle pieces and couldn't figure out how to get them together, but my creative mind was just like, fuck it, I'm just going to make it work. Anyway, I don't care.
Yeah.
And then medicine came along,
I'll
and
make
now
that square
there's
peg fit into a
order
round hole.
Exactly. Hey,
Yeah.
it happens. You got to shove that shit in there, make it work. I mean, shit.
Yeah. I had in college. My marketing teacher, the first day of class, walked in and he had the computer set up, and I guess he had a desk in the center, like the tower was set up on one desk, and then he had his keyboard and his mouse on another, and there was a cord that was stretching between, and everybody would walk around it, and I just kind of looked at it and went, why don't I just move the keyboard? So I moved the keyboard, went around, and just as I sat down, he looked at me and goes, you think outside the box.
Yes.
But that's very much how we think, though, is
We don't
that
really have
and that
we
same
look at
thing that
like,
people praise
the
us for
possibilities are endless.
will
So,
get,
like,
that same thing that we get praised for, we also get criticized for at the same time.
yeah, when we
And
have to
that's-
follow the rules.
Why can't
Yes.
you do things the right way, or
Yeah.
and see,
Color outside the box.
for me,
Yeah.
that was the hardest thing. One of the hardest things growing up for me, just thinking about it, was dealing with a father who it was either my way or the wrong way. So, being undiagnosed ADD, it was just a constant struggle with him because I would always do shit, not necessarily my way, I guess my way, but there were always different ways.
A different way, right. And I think that's what people confuse us with, that we're trying to be do it my way, but no, we just want to do it a different way. And it's not that your way is wrong.
Yeah.
It's just that we want to make sure that your way is right, or to see if there's another way around it.
I don't even know if it was that, but I mean, even going in.
Yeah, I don't even know if that's the right words, but yeah.
Starting a home inspector business with him. I mean, he, shit had to be done his way, and that didn't last because, I knew I had a better way of doing it, and he didn't want to hear it. Well, all right, go fuck yourself. There you go. Have fun.
Well,
do it yourself.
When we save that for another time, because we actually are out of time now. So we've hit the hour mark, which definitely goes to show that
that was real difficult to do.
We have a lot to talk about. So, but yeah, this hasn't been too bad for a very first webcast. So I think we got pretty much covered. Yeah. So I'm pretty happy with it. So yeah, so we'll end it here.
All right. I'm going back to bed.
You can go back to bed, yep. Cuddle up with your special someone over there.
Her name's Lisa.
Her name's Lisa, okay.
I'm going to go eat.
So am I.
My chili's ready too, so. Alright then, so let's
next Sunday at 8?
Sunday at 8, yeah, we're going to do it every week, so. So for anybody who's watching this, this will be posted on our YouTube channel. Make sure you click the like if you really like what you see. And you can, if you want to follow us, definitely click the subscribe button down below. I'll also include a link to the Facebook page down in the annotations below. And for all those, thanks for watching. And on behalf of Chicky, Tamara, and I, have a great night and keep flying and stay shiny.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.